Hello, welcome to the data science class. Now in this class, we will look up the four basic types of data analytics, which is mostly used by the data science. So in this case, we have two items. One we are going to call here as past and another we have as future, where the four phases of the data analytics will move up with one descriptive, two diagnosis, three predictive, and the last one was prospective. So descriptive and diagnosis, they will render over the past data, whereas predictive and prescriptive, they will render over the future data. So at the ground level, what happens to the data? So that exactly it will be pointed out at the descriptive. The root cause is identified, the troubleshooting, what the reason has been taken up. So what went wrong, the alerting queries, everything is going to be taken up with the diagnosis. And the third part, we are going to call it as predictive. So now we have the historic relation. Now, based on the past, now we will look up for the future, forecast for the future, where we will integrate or look with this predictive way. And finally, we will be taking some necessary action. So what type of action has to be taken up so that the business get improved, etc. So that one, it is going to be part of the perspective. So altogether, this is entire will be a feedback mechanism, a chain mechanism. So whether the decisions what we have taken are correct or not, the day according to the business domain, whether they went well or not. So that one it is going to be analyzed. So that decision making is also going to be analyzed. So this is where exactly the data analytics is going to have its issues. So you can look at this diagram where we are going to have this one, we call it as a descriptive, that is explained what happens. Next we have the diagnosis, that is why it went wrong. And fourth one, it is going to forecast what will happen in the future. And fifth one, what will be the recommendations, what will be the suggestions. So those items, they are going to be brought forward towards the prediction. So they towards the prospective analysis. So most likely the recommendations what we are going to inculcate, those recommendations, they are going to have a huge impact according to the business domain. The next thing what we are going to look up at this point was what will be the relationship between data science, social science, and computational social science. So as far as data science is going to have a relation, here you can see that tremendous interdisciplinary projects has been taken up from the social sciences, where a lot of computer scientists, statisticians, mathematicians, they are working together over the projects. And similarly, tools like Python or R as open source, they were used, and thereby towards prediction, etc. The machine learning algorithms has been applied over those programs. And next one was regarding the computational social science. Here, it is going to take up the human values or human relations with the governance, etc. So at this case, we can patients or content, they are going to be embedded from the and research problem, and thereby they are going to apply for the real life applications and consequences has been. So most of data science engender utmost appropriate way of fast research consequence. Clearly, then we decisions which are going to be taken between data science and science. So at this point,
science word which is going to find uh, takes up a lot of information from mathematics, from library sciences, etc. With the three properties, one we are going to call it as fast, two call it as three we are going to call it. So all these three they are going to be created science so that it is going to bridge up the knowledge gap and examine the data and happening in that it is going. And similarly, there are two more buzzwords what we need. One we are going to right from the databases data it's single entity item, but when it has a relationship with multiple items, then it is going to give up meaningful information. So that meaningful information is going to have its own purpose. There now we are going to call here as data, knowledge, and wisdom. So in the business domain for data mining, we're calling it as knowledge discovery in data process, KDD process. But now science, what we are going to bring up was we put up the words data, we put up the words information, we put up the words knowledge and wisdom. These are going to be in a hierarchical way so that we get enough insights from the data when it is information. The next four what we are going to here will be regarding the users of the users of the information. Yeah, according to the perspective, we have the user ability where they are going to observe the data, analyze the data, and data so that they will get some useful information in these items. And next one was we have a lot of operationalization instances. So whether a specific user task has been taken up or not, whether these items when connected they have brought a good insight over it. So the behavior has been identified or not. All these are going to coming. Similarly, when we talk about the personalization and recommendation engines, then we are going to talk about the recommendations and personalization engines. So when we work on e-commerce website and do surfing over a required item, the next time when we log in any other portal and that it is going to have a insight of it. So whatever buying pattern we have made, that it is going to visualize. So this is where personal recommendation going to come along with us. Whatever buying habit, next time when we log in there, we will get the same such a type of way this information is going to have its own impact on the country. After that, um, there is a case study where data science is going to be used the information school where we are going to call it as high schools here. So nowadays, lot of schools has been doing up this data science where they are going to use this regarding communication with the students, information studies, library studies, medical research, etc. So the objective was they are going to do with a full-fledged way where people are going to computer science understanding of computer science, statistics, machine learning. So all these are going to be applied so that they can analyze the student so they will have a quick understanding of the advantage of the student transition, etc. So every student record is going to be maintained. So in this way, similarly, this data science, if it is going to be applied to some health domain, so patient information is going to be stored. So that is where it is going to give communication both to the hospital's users and the hospital management users and doctors to diagnose the disease. The next important word here we have to see will be the computation thinking. So as far as computational thinking is going to happen, it is where a human cognition does in the brain. So it is totally raw, abstract, and that it has to be taken up. So the decomposition has to be taken up in this manner. So what will be those items means going to be a iterative model where we will get problem formulation, solution, and once the solution is there, and whether the execution is going to happen or not. So all this was a cycle. One, we are going to have problem formulation. We call it as an abstraction. Two, we are going to call that item as the second item. We call here as some the analysis part, and third one we are going to call here as a automation way. So these three items, they are going to have a feedback mechanism with one another. So how it has to go and how it is built and how it is analyzed, how it is used. So all that it is going to taken up into the issues. So the next interesting part here was what will be the skill for the data science? What will be the skill for the data science? So the very first skill what people look up will be the way we call here as willing to experiment. So what will be the willing to experiment was that we have a data, so whether data can be driven with curiosity, whether it can be applicable to a domain problem. So then identifying the abstract content and then articulating the problem customized to that domain. So next one was intellectual curiosity. So whether we can amalgamate it to our experiment and do some critical thinking over this content. The third way was to look up with this intelligent hypothesis. Was with this intelligent hypothesis. So initially we formulate a hypothesis and we put one null hypothesis. Another we are going to have an alternative hypothesis. So whether it falls in null hypothesis, take up such relation. If hypothesis was not satisfied with this less than 0.5 p value, so we reject the null hypothesis and we accept the alternate hypothesis. So in this way, at the initial stage, at the abstraction itself, when we are going to decide or apply over the model, there itself we are going to make an intelligent hypothesis so that the domain problem can be executed with this data science, etc. The second way was we are going to call it as the proficiency in mathematical reasoning. So when we talk about the proficiency in mathematical reasoning, so vast number of mathematical applications and statistical knowledge is mandatory for a data scientist, where he has to go with the reasoning, he has to execute his logic, he has to interpret his data, and he has to derive his own strategies, implement that content. Third thing was he has the word called as digital literacy. So in this digital literacy, the most important thing was he has to have a meaningful information from the data set where he can use for interpretation, where he can use to perform analysis and create visualization and give up valuable data stories. So these are all some of the intention where this data scientist has mandatory work in. So as far as skills is going to be concerned, he should have acquaintance over tools like R or Python, and this will be the basic tools where he has to retrieve data, rankle the data so that pre-processing can be done and give some quick insights via visualization tables or etc. So at the back end, in order to store the data, if it is in a structured form, people may use SQL or MySQL or an Excel. And similarly, if it is an unstructured form, he goes with NoSQL formats. And the communication will be with the basic visualization like tables, line charts, bar charts, etc. And this is where the experimental analysis or testing results is being communicated to the domain expert. So uh, next, the thing was what will be the skills and where what is meant by data and is the data with us. So yeah, when we are going to work with the data analysis part, the most important we look up at the environment, and then we take up the historic data, and then we apply our machine learning algorithms, so so that it gives some valuable insights to answer up the products answering operational or corporate questions. So whatever questions the corporate is going to ask, so those we have to answer it by applying our that too with the machine learning algorithms, etc. So all that we are going to call it as a database service. So we apply it over the data, we get an enough insights over that content. The third thing was what we are going to call here as a reasonably sized non-data companies. So they are going to have a modern business. They establish a team of data scientists and they evaluate the data. And finally, they are going to give up the code and they give to user via this visualizing after applying the business machine learning, etc. Similarly, as I was were mentioning earlier, right from the earlier content, that is, if we are going to if we are going to say we are putting up the definition of a data science is a cognition or a unified content right from big data, right from machine learning algorithms and data mining. So that is the reason why we are going to have a pig or hive along with this Hadoop framework. So all are going to be put together to bring the items for the real-time data. So the different stages or different skills what will be acquired towards the data science. So those we are going to put it out at this point of time. We call here as one the basic tools. Second one, basic tools will be the Python language, the R language. Second one will be the type of software engineering model what we are going to apply to this project, the statistical data to analyze the underlying content before we are going to apply any machine learning algorithms. The next step was we are going to the machine learning algorithm to understand the predicting outcomes. Then we work with the data using much more statistical and mathematical content with mathematical calculus or linear algebra, etc. Data pre-processing can be done, and communication of the results is totally we call here as data visualization, which is going to be the prominent part here. So before the data is taken up to the end user to understand the data, also we are going to do a data visualization, and finally to reciprocate the data to the end user, again we are going to represent the data visualization part only. So all this is going to be a four most important content for the data scientist, etc. So coming to the word, what will be the necessary tools of a data scientist? Yeah, we have a lot of necessary tools for data scientists. One we are going to call here as the R language here. Uh, Next one we are going to have uh, the Apache Tomcat and Sparkle, um, followed by uh, Python and with some other MATLAB, Tabla. So these are some of the prominent tools which can be used for doing up the data science. So the logos of such companies such as Spark and MySQL, NoSQL. So all these are going to be available. Similarly, we have if we are working with big data at that time, we will be using the HDFC, the Hadoop file system, and Hive, Pig, etc. So these are some of the interesting tools where data science will be the content. After that, we have this issues. We have the prominent issues or biases. What is happening when we are going to work with privacy in data science, etc. So definitely data science, it is going to deal with a lot of data, does data analytics, and there we will be getting collect the data and using the data as far as data science is concerned. So here is a case study which was conducted by the University of Cambridge. So they have obtained data from Facebook, and why they have done it in 2008, because they are using the data for the political campaign, and even people don't know Facebook is doing it. So they shared their views. Excuse me. So they shared their networking, Facebook and all, and that data they their people at those social networks, Facebook, and they collected enormous need getting a either Facebook networks. That data case study. Maybe we will end up with us.